morning then. Good turnout from everyone. Thank you very much for coming. We've got Gareth Thomas, who's a works in community development, who I've been spending some time with lately. We've been looking at some cool hedgerows and coppices around the city of Swansea. We've got a little video that we're going to show you, but I'll let Gareth say a few words before we get going on that.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming. Well, I'm glad you decided to come to this and not be outside in the sunshine. So as soon as this is over, we should all get in the sunshine. That would be my suggestion.
Oh, sorry, Gareth, you're muted there.
That happened.
There we are.
Okay. Yeah, just a reminder, can everybody mute their mic, please? Thanks. So all I'm going to do is give you 5 minutes. Somebody still hasn't muted their mic because it's coming over. Right. I'm going to give you a 5-minute introduction. Then we're going to watch a film, which isn't that long. It's like 12 minutes long. And then we're going to have a question and answer session. Hopefully Malcolm's in the group somewhere, can help me with that question and answer session. And then we're going to have a quick conversation about how we might broaden this kind of sort of project out and sort of maybe put a bid together to do more of this kind of work. So like I said, before we watch the film, I'm going to give you a 2-minute introduction into what we tried to do at Landor and the stadium. So this was a partnership project, part of the Havard-Moore for Copperworks partnership. At the time I was working at Swansea University, and the partnership was really between Swansea University and Swansea Council. And the project was done by myself and Malcolm Edwards. So we sort of did it in partnership. Malcolm, a lot of you will know Malcolm. Malcolm's a hedge layer. Been a hedge layer since his teenage years, and has done a lot of work all around Swansea, and we've been friends and working partners for a long time. So we've done a lot of hedge laying over the years, and so this seemed a good project to do together. This project was carried out during the autumn of 2019 and the winter of 2020. So it took place over about 4 to 5, maybe 6 months. And we got it finished just before the bad weather really hit. And the project involved really 2 hedges and 1 coppice. So we found a reasonably old coppice, about a sort of 150-year-old coppice, right by Landor Social Club, which we think was planted there right by the old canal in order to stabilise the bank. Probably towards the end of the copperworks working. I know the copperworks didn't shut till the 1980s, but it was sizing down from kind of like just after the First World War, really. So I think they planted the coppice there to stabilise the bank, and and then the hedge outside the stadium, which was the second part of this project, outside, there's a brand new hedge that was planted at the same time as the stadium was put up. So it's, I don't know, what is it, 10 years old, something like that. So, yeah, so that was the 2 parts of the project, really. And we'll explain more in the video. And the reason why we did this, the reason why we wanted to do this, and the reason why we wanted to do it in the city is because we wanted to kind of show that it could be done in a city. And we wanted to show that it was worthwhile and that people could kind of learn these skills in a city. They didn't just have to go out to Gower or something to learn them. They could learn the skills right in the middle of the city. And also we thought it would just look nice. And there was an opportunity because Landor Social Club had this problem. They had these overgrown trees that they wanted somebody to do something about. So, so that it was a possibility. The stadium and the parks department were happy for us to lay the hedge there. So the last thing I'll say is just that there was something like 170 volunteers involved in these projects over the 5 months. And that involved 4 or 5 local schools, both secondary and primary. Both the local universities supplied volunteers. Swansea University supplied something like 60 volunteers. And then there was some really committed local people, and I'm not going to name them all now, but there was at least 20 to 30 committed local people that came to just about every event that we did. And that's how we managed to get this work done, because it was a lot of work. So we had about 170 volunteers, and on average, they did 1 or 2 hours each. And obviously some people did a lot more hours than others. And then we did about 16 courses. So me and Malcolm ran about 16 courses on hedge laying, coppicing, woodland management, splitting of wood, making of hurdles, so on and so forth. Everything to do with coppicing and hedge laying. And we ran those courses on the sites, and they were free for anyone who wanted to come. And on average, we had sort of 7 to 10 people coming to each one of those events. Right, so that is enough of me talking, I think. So should we show the film? And it's not very long, everyone, so just hang in there.
Well, ring an endorsement. Here we go. Right.
This Swansea hedge laying project was organised by Swansea University whilst I was working at Swansea University, and was funded under the National Heritage Lottery Fund for the Copperworks. We chose this piece of land next to Landor Social Club, partly because it was Landor Social Club used to be part of the Copperworks. The building is part of the Victorian extension of the Copperworks, and it was also next to the canal that brought coal into the Copperworks. And this is probably why this hedgerow and coppice were originally planted. The bank is quite steep. It now lies right in the middle of the city, but it would have been on the edge of the city when it was planted. And I think the reason why they planted this coppice and hedgerow where they did was to stabilise the bank, as simple as that. The project consisted of myself and a hedge layer, and 169 local volunteers turned up over a 3-month period, which we had in sort of blocks of about 30, about 4 or 5 local schools and 2 or 3 local colleges, and both of the local universities, so Swansea University and Trinity St David's. The project lasted between October and December of 2019, and during that time we ran somewhere between 16 to 20 different courses, which covered coppicing, hedgerow management, hedge laying, and woodland management. We did both sites, so there's 2 sites of this project. One's at the stadium where we laid a new hedge. And like I said before, the other site was at Landor Social Club. So why did we do it? Well, we originally came up to see the site in August. And at that time, the trees were fully in leaf, and the hazel had grown to approximately 20 metres, something like that. And it was on a steep bank. And for that reason, we decided to lay it.
So you can see how big these were. If you have a look into the centre there, most of the trees standing here were sort of like this width. And they were all along this whole sort of like half-acre sort of patch, all sort of 20 metres tall. And everything underneath was completely dead. So the idea really was to bring this coppice back and allow the biodiversity to come back underneath.
When we turned up on site, really there was only 1 or 2 species left on this site, and that is because as hazel grows, and as I said, it's designed to be coppiced every 7 to 10 years. So as it grows, it increasingly cuts out the light for anything that would try and grow beneath. So really you only get kind of fungus and stuff that can kind of take damp and wet conditions that will grow underneath. And in many sort of ancient coppices, what we find is that every 7 to 10 years when they're cut, you get this massive bloom of wildflowers whose seeds are just sitting there, knowing that every 7 to 10 years they're going to get a good 3 years where they get a lot of light, and then the light will be increasingly cut out. And so the seeds just sit in the ground. And there was no real reason to believe that this bank would be any different. And in fact, it hasn't been. So we coppiced this in 2019 and laid the hedge. And since we did that, there's now probably 20 to 30 different species have sort of cropped up. There's obviously hawthorn has come in, and ash, blackthorn, there's some elder, some white rose, some cow parsley can be seen. And this is all by the side of a road. So you can imagine how much more biodiverse this would be if it was in the middle of a woodland.
As ecologists, we are always interested in understanding better how biodiversity can thrive and how different species can persist across landscapes. And one of the things that is a recurrent theme in ecological research is how, by connecting different patches of large habitats, like for example that hill over there, how can we enhance biodiversity by connecting those patches through like smaller corridors, like for example this coppicing initiative here. We can make these habitats connected and therefore facilitate the dispersal of the different species. So I think that these projects like this that connect different urban or different natural areas across different urban gradients are really important for facilitating this movement of species and ultimately make biodiversity better at the urban and also more natural landscape.
One of the interesting aspects is the elimination. So by coppicing, we have eliminated a invasive species. Knotweed had just started to creep into the edges of the coppice, and since we coppiced it, the wildflowers have come back and that knotweed has completely disappeared. As we've kind of crowded it out, given the native plants more space to take back their territory, they've kind of pushed out the knotweed once more. That eliminates any need for us to spray it. So why in Wales do we have so many hedges and so many coppices? People tend to think hedgerows are ancient, and some of them are. Some of them go back to Roman times. The planting of hedgerows is a much more recent story around kind of enclosure, and particularly parliamentary enclosure in the late 18th century. And that's where most of about 50% of our hedges really were planted there then in order to enclose fields so that they could be farmed in a more modern way. The coppicing is, as I said, is a different story, but it's sort of the same story really. Our coppicing history in Wales comes from a time earlier than our hedges, earlier than most of our hedges, in that most of our coppicing was planted for the use of charcoal. And it's really hard now for us to imagine how much charcoal was needed during the early days of the Industrial Revolution. The early days of the Industrial Revolution weren't powered by coal, they were powered by charcoal. Coal had been known and discovered, but it wasn't known how to use it efficiently. So most of the early Industrial Revolution was powered by charcoal, and it takes round about 1 acre of coppiced hazel to feed a ironworks for about an hour. And these things used to run for days on end, 24 hours a day. So much of Wales, any hillside area, south facing, that wasn't used for arable land would have been covered in coppice. And that is quite evident in our historical records that we have. So why do we need to lay hedges now in the city, of all places?
I mean, one of the reasons why we did this project is because we wanted to bring the kind of beauty of these hedges into the city, didn't we? Yeah. And one of the things that astonishes me, and you can really see it well here, is just how beautiful they are as a thing.
You have to work with the resource you've got, and
this is all beech, and you know, it was challenging because it was overstood, very, again, quite heavy, so some of the cuts are really big. You can see how big the diameter was. The back was really big, and then the front was a lot thinner. But I got this as close to Brecon style as I possibly could, and the binding technique isn't Brecon. It would have been a single binder behind a single stake if it was Brecon style, but this is closer to the Midland style of binding. But the key with this style of hedge is to build. So you have to build the material to get the desired effect, and which would have been to create a stock-proof barrier. But it's built. You don't just lay one after the other. You offset your work, and you try and, if you like, control the material so it locks behind the stakes well, but creating this nice facade as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things worth saying is this hedge wasn't planted in order to be laid.
True.
So if you planted the hedge in order to be laid, you may have planted it slightly differently. You would certainly planted it slightly thicker. But this was just a hedge that was just planted here in order to hide the road behind, right? To give a little bit of a gap between this main road and this main road. But we've seen the opportunity to make it look beautiful.
So this style of hedge laying is completely different to the piece of work that's in front of Landor Social Club. The piece of work at Landor is closer to what the style of hedge laying you find on Gower, and that obviously is just using the resource that comes from the hedge, which is what you'd find on a Gower hedge bank. Whereas this style we did here because of the copper works bringing so many of the farming community down out to the hills and off the farms to work, because the livelihood that was earned here was easier to earn a livelihood in the copper works than it was on the farms back then. We wanted to do a piece of work that honoured the farming communities that came down from the hills. Obviously, people's lives were a lot shorter than working in the copper works. Potentially, people lived longer living on the farms, but when you have a family to feed, farming was really hard. So this piece of work was to honour the farming communities that committed to being here. So this style of hedge laying is closer to the Brecon style in that it's stake and bound. So there's a stake every metre, and then there's a binder that locks the stakes together. But this hedge is solely beech. There's no other material in here, it's just beech. And it was planted when the Liberty Stadium there was built. So 15 years regrowth. And it's 96 metres, and there's not one stretch of it that's a straight line. So it's curves all the way along.
These hedges, we have to remember, are designed to be laid, and if we don't lay them, they grow out and they cease to exist over time. And we're getting very close to that point now, really. But what we do know about hedges is also that they prevent soil loss, and that they reduce pollution, and they prevent flooding. And these are all things that we need in the future. And I think for me, one of the most interesting aspects of hedges is the reduction of pollution. So in a recent study, it was found that trees weren't that good at reducing pollution in cities. In Victorian times, the Victorians knew which trees to plant, and they planted big plane trees which have huge leaves. And the reason for that was so that the leaves would take the pollution from the air, fall to the ground, and then you could sweep them up and therefore remove the pollution from the air. Now, with less and less street cleaners and with less and less people employed to do that kind of work, and also with the city trying to save money by planting smaller trees such as silver birch, that's no longer really relevant. But our hedges can actually fill that gap. Our hedges, which tend to be lower than trees, will suck up a lot of pollution and will actually hold on to it. And particularly trees used in hedges such as beech trees. Beech trees, when they're used in hedges, they stay as immature trees. And because they stay as immature trees, they keep their leaves throughout the entire year. And therefore they hold on to the pollution. So we can use the power of our hedgerows in our cities to reduce pollution, to take greenhouse gases out of circulation, store carbon, and prevent soil loss. So in the city, it's very easy to walk past a hedge, maybe an ancient hedge, maybe an ancient hedgerow bank, maybe an ancient hedge that's been there 4, 5, 1,000 years, and never notice it. So I hope by watching this video, by listening to me, the next time you're out there, you might notice it a bit more.
Sorry for the cheesy ending, everyone, but but I hope you sort of got the point, really, of what we tried to do with that project and what we're going to try and do going forward, really. So, can I just sort of? I think Malcolm's online. Yeah, Malcolm's online. You can see Malcolm in his coppice there with his work clothes on. So, anybody got any questions about what we did, how we did it, or literally any questions at all, really? Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I was just wondering, sort of like, I know obviously when you said, I'm guessing Landor Social Club like came forward with that site in some way, shape or form, sort of made it be known they had a problem, they went and it's all worked out for everybody. Is there like, you know, because like, how do you find these sites is I guess my question, you know what I mean? Because like, if I guess there's other coppices sort of scattered around Swansea and South Wales and everywhere really, but like like how hard is it to find these sites to work on, and is it sort of a case of the public sending information and saying, you know, I was walking through the woods and I saw this, you know, or is it you know what I mean? That's kind of my question, really.
That's a brilliant question, and it's probably the most important question. They're everywhere. They are. You start walking around the city and looking, because there was a very interesting study done by Dublin City Council, and they tried to estimate how many. And anyone who's been to Dublin knows it's not a massive city. You know, it's bigger than Swansea for sure, but it's not like kind of London size. You know, it's a medium-sized city. And they try to estimate how many hedges they had in the city on municipal land, private land. And it was miles and miles, you know, literally, I think in British landscape, and you know, Dublin's obviously not in Britain, but in British landscapes, they are everywhere. And when you start walking around the city and just sort of having your eyes a little bit open, and I don't know if Mal, you want to add anything to this, but I just see them everywhere. I mean, I live near Hedgerows, where I live. There is hedges. There's coppice hedges, you know, and it's all overgrown. Yeah. It's all gone too old. It's all starting to sort of gap up and look rubbish. Have you got anything to add to that, Mal? No, he hasn't got anything to add to that. Oh yeah.
You hear me now?
I can just about hear you, yeah.
You just about hear me?
Yeah, it's not so good. I think you need to come closer, Mal.
Closer, all right. How about now? Any good?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think with Swansea, there's going to be historic hedge banks that are based around Swansea Castle. So, you know, with the historic society, the archaeological trusts and things, they'll have records of the ancient hedge bank in Swansea. You know, if you look at the roots of Swansea and you know how it was formed in the first place, there'll be history there. But you know, the farming communities is always obviously a lot of my work is based in the farming community. So Swansea has got that kind of interesting connection between the sea and the land. So there's, you know, it's got roots. You know, there's a lot that can be found out in that sense. But you know, there's estates as well. There's estate housing. You know, big estate. You know, big houses and the surrounding boundaries that are around them. Another whole field of hedgerows based on that. You know, you could even be looking at privet hedges in urban environments that could be managed better than just being clipped with hedge cutters all the time. You know, it's the hedge banks that the hedges grow on are potentially older than the plants themselves because they're, you know, defenses. But you know, it's vast. You know, it's vast. You could plant a hedge and within 7 years have the intention of laying it yourselves if you live in Hendreboylan or the uplands. You know, it's something you can adopt on a small scale as well as a large scale. So I'm waffling a bit there, maybe.
No, actually, for me, that's one of the interesting things. So, I mean, we know that there's a lot of really old hedges in Swansea that have gone. You know, like you can see them, you can walk along, and maybe you see a line of. Like I know of one specifically in May Hill by May Hill Washing Lake, and there's a line of hawthorn there, and we know exactly when it was planted. It was planted about 200 years ago, but we have the exact date because we have the historical records. Now that's virtually gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know there's hopes to bring it back, but like what I'm saying is those kind of lost hedgerows in the city, they're everywhere.
Funny you mentioned May Hill, Gareth. It was like I read a really interesting piece talking about like the garden village sort of aspect of May Hill when it was designed and built and keeping the green spaces. And funnily enough, I walked exactly where you described. I walked up and over the hill to Kumbulla this morning and back. I live in North Hill. And it's beautiful just being like you go from a terrace and like 2 minutes, bang, you're in the middle of the countryside. You know, it really, that thing, it really changed sort of how I looked at that space. But like you said, like managing these spaces, I guess, isn't like, I think there's probably been a lot of these things where schemes were put in and things haven't been maintained over the years. And like you said, there's a need to go back and sort of keep on top of these things now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other really interesting thing about the hedgerows in not only in the urban environment but in the countryside is that people's historic impact in their management is almost always captured in the middle. So if you can imagine a standard Gow hedge bank, which is usually quite say medium high, and then the hedge laying on top would be a medium height to get the finished stock-proof height effect. There's always the evidence of someone else's management kind of preserved in the middle. So you know, if you know what to look for, if you know how to look for the pleached living stems that lie parallel to the hedge bank, you can almost always then replicate that management because it's worked. If the plants are still alive, the previous management of whoever's looked after it works. You know, so it's really, I find that really interesting. It continually inspires me to find plants that are still like 200 years ago have been laid. They're still alive, you know, and whoever did it had a kind of maybe a craftsman or craftswoman view of their work because it's preserved, you know. And
yeah, I mean, I was walking in Singleton Park a couple of days ago near the entrance where you get in from the hospital, and there's a ditch there, and you can see, I mean, there's no evidence of a hedge there anymore, but you can see the standard trees. You know, you can see the tree where the trees were every, you know, the older trees every 20 to 30 meters. Now it hasn't been laid probably in 150 years, but it would at one point have been laid, you know, because there was no other way of stock proofing or a field that didn't exist.
No barbed wire, you know, there's no metal, no, you know, it's all about the plants and smaller amounts of animals, I think, as well. That's the key. Yeah. Interesting.
Has anybody else got any questions before we waffle on forever?
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
You know, I run a community space. We grow trees and such, and we've had hedges laid by Mal in the past, young hedges, I might add, that we planted specifically for that purpose. But you know, the problem with hedge laying is it costs more to lay a hedge, doesn't it, than it does just to sort of flay it and such. So what funding streams are open, really, you know, for because the hedges that Mal did a few years ago, they need more treatment and such. And then there's other hedges out and about. I also work for the Orchard Project, so we've actually sort of Mayhill Washing Lake is one of our projects there. So what funding streams are open, really, sort of for hedge laying?
For me, sorry, Mal, but for me, the issue here is sustainability, right? So these hedges have to be laid in the long term, don't they? So it's not.
Yeah.
We've all been involved in projects that lasted 3 years and then nothing happened after 3 years, you know, and you know, we've all done that. And I'm personally less interested in it now because this is a sustainable issue, right? And I think the only way we're really going to make these hedgerows sustainable is to teach local people how to lay them, and you know, and seriously over some time, so that the skills are in the community to continually lay them and to teach other people to lay them. And I know that's not, you know, we all want a grant and then bring Mal in to do it. And, you know, there's always going to be some of that because he's an expert, you know, and he's quick and he's very good and he makes them look beautiful. But I think we also have to start doing them ourselves, learning how to do them ourselves and doing them ourselves, don't we?
You know, Mal, though, when he did the hedgerows, we ran courses and taught people to do it. You know, this was about 5 or 6 years ago. My volunteers have moved on. So I've got another group of volunteers. I think there's only one really who took part in Mal's training and such. So, you know, if Mal was to teach a new group of volunteers, that, you know, that would then have some sustainability and we could sort of do the others possibly.
Yes.
Yes.
I think there was the intention of the Gower Society put in, and I think it was SDF, Sustainable Development Fund.
Yeah.
Two funding sources to put another project together to tool up some more volunteers. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I've lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only hear you. I can't see you now. So I think there's the intention of trying to source some more money to run some more projects. But yeah, I think that's in the pipeline. Okay, that's really good. Yes.
What we're doing here isn't easy, is it? We're trying to bring back a skill that's been completely lost. You know, like it's been utterly lost. And if we don't want our hedgerows to disappear, we have to bring it back, don't we, in some shape or form. Even if we're not going to be as good as Mal, we have to be able to sort of like lay them in some shape or form. Otherwise, we are going to lose these people.
Yeah, I think that's some of the problem is Mal does it so beautifully that we all know that we're not going to be able to replicate that. It's going to be a bit of a hack job.
Yeah.
But, you know,
and it's not about me. It's not about me having work. It's about returning to what I think it was like in the, you know, maybe before the First World War and the Second World War, in that there were teams of people that used to go out hedge laying together. It's just the same as there were teams of people that would go out and do the hay, or teams of people that would go out and shear the sheep, or it wasn't about a single hedge layer in Swansea or 4 or 5 hedge layers in Swansea. It was about a workforce of people that had the skills to be able to kind of get out and get at it.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Kate.
No, you didn't. You answered my question. That's great. Yeah. I'm going to put myself on mute because my dog's...
I'd like to say something, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes. Love to hear you.
Now, I'm probably one of the only ones that did the hedge laying course with Malcolm all those years ago. And I am, although I did that, I'm not confident enough to do it again properly. Yeah. And I'd like to, I would really love to be able to do it much better so that I can teach it to other people, because it's you know, it's something that can't die.
But I mean, that's a matter of getting experience, isn't it? You know, like, because you know the basics, you know, and it's a matter of getting experience, isn't it? And the only way we're going to get experience is to do more of these projects, isn't it? I think. I don't know what you think, Mal, but
yeah, but connecting. So who's that just spoke before you, Tom?
What's your name? Sorry,
My name is Swansea.
Swansea. Oh, it is coming up.
Swansea, how are you? Right?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right, thanks, Mal. So
she's a colleague of mine at Croydon Park. So yes, so this is the Croydon Park sort of mob here. Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. So it's about connecting. You know, just loosely, it's about connecting Swansea up with the right hedge to practice on. So there has to be a network that would connect Swansea up with something that is realistically she's able to kind of just connect with and lay with you know, in a straightforward way. So I guess it's about, again, raising awareness for people to say that'd be perfect for Swansea, put her to it, you know, or get her the tools and then get 3 people to go with her. Bang, off it goes. You know, so I guess it's about tailoring a fun. Yeah.
I think what I need is just a little bit more sort of guidance before I feel like I can then do it. And then once I've done it, you know, a bit, then I'm sure that I can guide other people as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because you can't learn it all in 2 days. No, it's not possible. Like,
but there's quite a lot of people like this, isn't there? So when we did that project, we had quite a lot of people that came every day. You know, and they were people that had been on Gower Hedgerow Hub and done a little bit of training and wanted to get more experience. So they came every day. And I think the only way we're going to kind of build that small community of people with that skills again is to keep on sort of chipping away at this, giving people the opportunity until they feel more comfortable enough to do it on their own, or to do it in a group, or to do it unsupervised in some way.
Yeah, right. Build confidence.
Yeah, building confidence.
And have a source of good equipment as well. I think is key.
Yeah, and having a decent set of equipment. I think and how to look after that equipment. I think the other thing is maybe in a project, if we were serious about having a project, is to get apprenticeships as part of that as well, and get some young people actually through apprenticeships. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's access to that apprenticeship work at the minute as well somewhere. I'm looking into some things like that at the minute. Yeah.
Sorry, Scott, you had your hand up very, very nicely there for ages. So
it's fine. It's just going back to what you were saying. Like, I think there's a really, I think a lot about how I think especially with young people, the reason things get smashed up anytime somebody puts something nice into an area is because there's no sense of ownership. Like, people don't feel connected to their environment. People don't know what birds are in their garden. They don't know what plants grow in Swansea. They don't know, because you can't get this hyper-local information anywhere unless you really know where to look. And I think there's so many nature corridors in Swansea. There's so many little parks. There's so many things that were put in with the best intentions, but then because of money needing to go elsewhere, and I think that's the general truth in Swansea. I think it's not even neglect. It's just the money's needed to be spent elsewhere over the years. Like, lots of these little areas that were designed with all the best intentions to be green spaces, to be managed, to be part of the local communities. You know, a lot of them are quite tired, and there's lots of litter, things aren't being maintained. And I think there's perhaps an avenue there where you could, like you were saying about getting young kids involved, you know, you could have kids from the local schools going out, getting involved in this. And then not only are they learning skills, not only are they learning about their environment, but then you get them fostering a sense of ownership of the area. They're going home, you know, they might tell off some kids then if they see kids chucking litter, or they'll go home to their parents and say how nice it was. And I don't know, I think there's like a really nice overlap there where it fosters sort of community spirit and that sort of side of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked actually when we were doing. when we were doing the hedge laying course, we had a couple of the inner city schools near Landor, and we took them up to sort of work on the hedge and stuff like that. And where it was autumn, a lot of the leaves had come off the beech tree hedge, particularly where it had been clipped on the side. And the kids went mental. The kids went absolutely mental, just playing in these leaves, you know. And I'm sort of banging on about how the importance of this hedge, chattering away, you know, going, oh, this hedge is so important. And the kids are just going crazy in these leaves. And you suddenly realise a lot of the inner city kids don't have an opportunity to, like, we live in a rural city. Unless you've got a car or some form of transport, you don't go out to Gower, you know. Yeah. So unless we enhance these inner city areas, we are depriving people of these kind of experiences of that are kind of human experiences, aren't they? Yeah, so, yeah, I couldn't agree more, Scott. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe more trying to source funding to plant more hedges and work in more community environments like Rose Hill Quarry and other little nature pockets of nature in the middle of cities. Again, it's going out into education, like Scott says, isn't it? Like trying to get into schools and make sure that the national curriculum recognizes these kind of heritage crafts and things as well. You know, and the sources of hedges in their environment got to reach into the schools as well, I think, as well as colleges and universities like Tom's been doing. But yeah, fully with Scott on that.
So Gareth, did you work with schools doing hedge laying?
Well, that was the plan, but it's actually very hard to work with a school.
I'm just thinking of the teacher doing the risk assessment for it, and you would need such a
I mean, I was lucky. I sort of had several schools I'd worked with over the years and several teachers I'd worked with over the years. You just kind of knew how to do it, you know, and which school to call and which teacher to call and all that. But yeah, it is tough. But I think just getting kids out to. So one of the things I wanted to do was not so much get them actually hedge laying. I'm not that interested. But just saying that when you're on Gower and you see these things, you know, they're a historic thing, and they're a beautiful thing, and they're meant to look like this. You know, this is what, you know, and just that awareness, really. That's probably all I was hoping for.
Yes. Yeah. You know, you just need a very, very good staff ratio. You probably could do it. You know, I'm a forest school leader and I work with children with knife work and things like that, but the ratio that you need per child, you know, sort of in order to supervise that, you know, is quite heavy, but it could be done. Yeah,
we were just doing sort of single cuts with a few kids, you know, like, so you get 3 kids down, do a single cut, another 4 or 5 kids do, you know, they didn't even hold onto the saw really, but like I don't know if you got anything to add to that, Mal.
Yeah, it's possible, but I think you've got to kind of grade the ages of people that could realistically work with tools into the future, haven't you? You know, you give year 9 the experience of working with traditional tools, whether it's green woodwork or hedge laying, that might set the foundations for something in the future, isn't it? And then I guess you've got to, I don't know, tree identification and the forest school skills, the knife work, the really basic stuff at a young age, and then try and grade in, you know, I don't know, you could even use the OCN accreditation as a way in to work with young people that aren't doing so well in school. You know what I mean? You might find that child remembers like 10 trees. You know, they can identify 10 trees. It's like kind of, you can clock that and then work with that child further down the line, you know, or I don't know, you know.
This is what I find with the tree nursery. Quite often it's the academically sort of led children don't, you know, sort of well, you know, some of them do take to it, but quite often it's the non-academic children that really take to these skills and sort of find that there's something that they can good at and they can do, and it's a possible career or something in the future for them that maybe I don't think schools are very good at planting the seeds for that sort of career or anything.
Yeah, it's not high enough on the agenda.
No, it's not. It's not, and it suits a lot of kids who, especially the inner city school kids, might not have actually, you know, sort of ever thought about that sort of thing. But
yeah, so I mean, we had several kind of neat groups. Neat's a horrible word, but
it is.
You know, teenagers who are out of work. We had several groups of those of people like that come up and sort of work with us, and you know, it wasn't easy, but I think they got a lot out of it, and I couldn't agree more, Kate. You know, like a lot of our projects and a lot of our project money is orientated towards the middle class things, really, because we're better at applying for the money. I think that's basically where it may have more time.
And the contacts.
And maybe the contacts and just, I don't know, whatever it is. But, and you know, that's obviously something we all need to be aware of, isn't it? And I think on this project, it was one of the reasons why we wanted to do it right smack in the middle of SA1. You know, we didn't want to do it on a nice field on Gower. You know, we wanted to do it right in the middle of the city, right by the stadium, right where anyone could see it. You know, anyone could say, well, what have they done there? You know, what's going on? You know, that was our aim, wasn't it, Mal?
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Obviously, it has its value working in the farming community as well, because you know, hedge laying is practiced out here and on Gower, you know, but often it's hedge laid once and then tracked the mountain flail for like twice a year for the rest of its life. So I mean, we're still trying to promote the practice. We're not scolding farmers for their way of managing their land. We're just trying to promote a practice that regenerative. It's one of the only regenerative agricultural practices that's still going, I think. You know, so it needs more promotion, I think, even in the urban environments.
I'm just wary of time, so we're coming up to 10:02 now. We're only allocated 1 hour. Okay. So unless I'll give one more chance, if anybody's got like a question that they've got to ask, they can answer it as well if they want. That would be quicker, wouldn't it? But if they've got to ask, then and we haven't covered it already, then do you want to ask it now? I'll give you anyone. No. Okay, we're going to move on. So the last part of this really is just is a very brief conversation about how we might move forward. So maybe I can start the conversation and maybe Mal can chip in. So the Environment Centre that's hosting this event are interested in getting a bid together to do more of this kind of work, more inner city hedge laying. And, you know, Swansea's a pretty rural city. So I think our sort of, our ideas of urban are pretty rural, if you know what I mean. So we're not just talking about SA1, we're talking about the whole of Swansea, really. And, you know, obviously the hedges we could do could be infinite. But we're really talking about inner city hedges that we can lay or plant, or coppices that we can do. And one of the other, this topic of conversation has already come up, but a couple of the other things that we're obviously really want to do is get a kind of volunteer group, maybe, you know, something around the kind of hedgerow hub or something like that, that kind of want to, where people who want it, local people, volunteers who want to get trained up in kind of woodland management or coppicing or hedge laying, and also some apprenticeships, because there's lots of level 3 and level 4 courses in the local colleges, and you know, they don't have anywhere to do their apprenticeships, and we could supply that. We could supply that on hedges and coppices in the city. So at that, I will let anyone else who wants to say something about that say something. I know that's pretty open, but if you literally just want to say, well, I've got this hedge and I'd love it to be laid, or we'd love to be involved, and, you know, just say that.
Hi, my camera's not actually working today, so I would switch it on if I could. But I'm Nico. I work for Coed Lleol on the Active Woods Swansea project. So we do woodland wellbeing activities in Swansea. And yeah, thanks. It's been really interesting, this talk. And yeah, if there's any hedgerows that are within woodlands, then we'd love to get involved. And I was just thinking recently about, somebody mentioned Rose Hill Quarry, and I was thinking recently about that woodland corridor that stretches from Rose Hill all through Town Hill would be a great location to do some things. And I know there is some coppiced hazel in that woodlands. It's mainly just full of rubbish at the moment, but
Hi, Nico. Just hi.
Hi.
If anyone knows Nico, she works up on Kilvey Hill, I think. Amongst
Yeah,
other
we
things.
do some stuff on Kilvey Hill.
Just before before Mal, I can see Mal dying to chip in here, but before Mal, that is an. Thanks for raising that, Nico, because that is exactly the kind of thing I think we were kind of thinking of. Is kind of maybe working on some of these corridors that need some work that already exist. So enough of me talking about that. But Mal, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Nico, because there's historic hedge laying in that bank. So I guess before May Hill and Town Hill were even constructed, that was managed farmland. And there's because I did a little stretch of hedge laying in Rose Hill, and I think it was Viv Makin and Rosemary that told me about that bit up there. We haven't had a chance to look at it. We'll have to work together, I think, and see if we can get something happening there. Yeah, brilliant suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. So Town Hill is called Town Hill is called Town Hill because it's the hill of the town. It was owned by the town, so you could go up there and collect wood or whatever. I mean, it was a common area. And then was enclosed, as I said in the video, in the parliamentary enclosure. So until that point, it was farmland, and it still has all those attributes like old hedges and some old coppice as well.
All right, brilliant. Oh, it's perfect then, really. And you know, the kind of environment you'd hope the community would want to adopt, isn't it?
Talking about that wildlife corridor, because you know, my other job is the Orchard Project, and we've worked with Primrose Hill at the side of Heathfield, actually on Primrose Hill between Cromwell Street and here. And there's a little line of hedge that's been planted a month ago or something, which I think it was woodland trust trees. In that line, the trees are very small, but you couldn't get much more urban than alongside Primrose Hill going up there. It's again part of that Town Hill wildlife corridor that you've been talking about. And then the Orchard Projects are also involved, you see, with North Hill Community Garden, where you were talking about, Scott was talking about that hedge. Now, I don't know, but we've got some involvement in restoration of that space now, because Jeff is sort of manages it. So, you know, maybe there's some possibilities there with training, because we can offer some training, you know, sort of to the volunteers associated with there. So that's all tying in with that lovely wildlife corridor going through town, which is so vital.
Brilliant.
But yeah, just more hedges, really.
Yeah. More the merrier.
Yep.
Yeah, to be honest, I just think that's perfect, isn't it? That's the kind of thing we definitely want to be doing. The hedgerow, the old hedgerow, the old hawthorn hedgerow that Scott was talking about earlier, is in that bit coming up from the main road at May Hill. So that's about 250 years old, I think.
Right. Okay.
But all that's left is about 3 old hawthorn. That's all that's left of that whole hedgerow bank, you know.
Right. So it would be a restoration, really. Yeah. To go in and then
But you know, for that part of the project, I mean, the story's quite important, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? To bring back this really, where we know for definite there was a hedgerow, 100% we know, because we've got the records of them buying the hawthorn to go in there. And then we've got further records of them laying it. So we know 100% that it was there. And to have a hedgerow there again, right in the middle of the city, right on the edge of kind of where North Hill meets Mayhill, that to me is the sort of perfect sort of pattern of this kind of project, really.
Yeah.
I've had some involvement with Swansea University Tree Society, Gareth, and there's a couple of key, they're very much into planting trees, and in fact there's some trees being delivered to Coidenbach today for that, and I know there's a couple of people who are dead keen on planting them all and such, so that would definitely be a follow-on for the Tree Society to sort of link in with that once the hedges are mature enough to lay.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, this is it, isn't it? We have to keep this go. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
yes.
What I felt very much when we did this, Gower Hedgerow Hub were coming towards the end of their funding, and me and Mal are friends with Helen.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, how can we keep this thing going? Okay, let's bring it into the city. Let's have a crack at bringing it into the city. So that was really the sort of, so, I should have mentioned Helen Gray earlier, really, but the whole impetus of this project came from Helen Gray's work on Gower.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, we have to, this is an issue that isn't going to go away in 10 or 20 years just because we plant a load of trees.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to plant them. We have to learn how to maintain them. We have to learn how to maintain the hedges. And if we're not going to do it, then no one's going to do it, are they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, you've got the community farm, there's a beautifully laid hedge there, then I'm Upper Clay, there's one, then there's Landor. Which other ones have you been involved with?
In the city?
Yeah.
Mal, you'd probably be involved. Well, there's one at Rose Hill, isn't there? And then there's...
Yeah, Rose Hill, not enough. Like
a long time ago, I laid one in Singleton Park, along where the school is, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but really not enough. I mean, the other Goyer School, I did a big span.
Okay.
Which was really old, overstood hazel. But again, school boundaries,
Yes.
School boundaries are a really good place to start,
Yeah.
Because you've already got an existing workforce, but also a kind of impressionable group of people that would be potentially inspired by it as well.
Yeah, I know you say it's not enough, but in the last few years, there have been, some massive, very visible hedges, which, sort of people comment to me about and such. So, on a positive note, things are looking up with regards to that. It just needs to continue the impetus, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it became really evident to me when we laid the stadium hedge. There was just so much interest. There was so many people who wanted to know why it was being done, how it was being done. And it's kind of, and that to me, I suppose, is when we do it on Gower, obviously we're working with the historical hedge 100%, and we're bringing that back, and we get the biodiversity gains as well as other carbon capture gains, but the education part can be lost, because it's just on a field somewhere that maybe not many people sort of go past. When we bring it into the city, everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Before I took on this role, a lot of the Active Woods things were done down the Gower. That was mainly partly to do with some of our funding, but yeah, I get a lot of people getting in touch, offering their woodlands down the Gower, and I just I don't really want to do things down the Gower because it's not accessible for people that we want to engage with. And Swansea, as a city, we've got loads of green woodland spaces right in the middle of the city, so yeah.
I mean, we're super lucky like that. We've got lovely Victorian parks. We've got some great, green spaces that have somehow managed to survive all the best efforts of everyone to kill them off. And that some of them have got litter on and stuff like that, but we still got these green spaces, and we still got a lot of hedgerows.
Yeah.
Has there anybody else got anything they want to kind of add to the conversation? I'm just wary. We're 1 minute over now, and I'm a stickler for time. So I just wondered if anybody else has got any more questions or anything else they wanted to say about a project going forward. Obviously, anyone that was on here, we will let you know going forward what we're doing and stuff like that. Because what our intention is to put a bid together. And if you really want to be involved, you know, if you really want to help us write this bid, rather you than me, actually I will be the one writing it. So then you probably best off getting in touch with the Environment Centre and just sort of putting your name forward. But like, or you can just contact me directly or Malcolm directly and just give us your email and we'll include you in everything. We're looking for a group of people to get together. But we will definitely do another information session going forward before any bid goes in. So like we will let people know, and we will keep and obviously anybody who's a member of the organisations we know, like Nico and Kate, you'll 100% be involved in anything we do. There's no, we've got no interest in keeping anything quiet or anything like that. So, but has anybody got anything else they want to add about Mal? Have you got anything you want to say?
No, they're obviously due to COVID and things like that. A lot of the work, the hedge laying courses and things like that have been put on hold. But I think the intention is that at least there's going to be at least a couple of hedge laying courses to happen next autumn through Bont. It's not obviously Gower Hedgerow Hub is no longer, but Bont is a grasslands and meadows project. But they're thinking of overseeing the next few hedge laying courses. But I mean, thankfully it's the end of the season now for hedge laying and coppicing, so that there's time, I guess, for the Environment Centre to kind of, I guess, get equipped and see if there's funding sources to run something there. Yeah. So there's a good few months to go before we're going to be doing any more hedge laying at the minute. Yeah. So
I'll just from the Environment Centre front to say that, yeah, if you want to sort of be involved in discussion, either find it on Facebook, which is probably how you found this talk, or if you email to info@environmentcentre.org.uk, we'll be able to help along with that. And that might stretch to things like having some community tools that can be shared out to people.
Absolutely.
Bringing people together. So it's, this is our first dip into seeing how people want to go about doing this, if there's interest in it. And we've already pulled together like a group of good informed people. So it looking very promising. So yeah, get in touch. I'll put the email address in the chat now as well.
Great.
So can I just ask one last time before we all go? Thank you everyone for turning up on this beautiful day. God knows how you did it or why you did it, but thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and your input. It was so nice to hear from everyone. I really enjoyed the questions and everything about it. So thank you very much. Just before we go, has anybody got anything they're dying to say or ask? Okay, well that's it. And thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thanks all.
Have a good day.
Hope to see you around.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Ta-ra. Speak to you again soon, Nori.
Yeah, see you, Mal.
Okay, see you. Ta-ra.